I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
Hey there, spooky nerds. Aaron here, and welcome back to Talking Strange, the Paranormal Pop Culture show. And hey, I'm on the road. That's probably no surprise. I'm always on the road, it seems like. Always traveling. I was just coming out of the paranormal event called ComCon, and that was in Virginia City, Nevada, where gathered together to look at ghosts. We'll look for ghosts, talk about the paranormal, talk about spooky things, but also enjoy just that old silver mining, old West town with the wooden sidewalks. Such a great place. I love going to Virginia City. And now I'm recording this as I'm on my way to Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky. Pretty big horror event. So if you find yourselves there and you find me there, come say hi. But let's get to the show, because my guest today, he's been on Talking Strange a handful of times. It's always a pleasure to talk to him. I've had the fortune of talking to him many times throughout the years. He is truly a hero of the genre, a effects master, and then executive producer and director and showrunner of The Walking Dead, and then Creepshow on Shudder. Greg Nicotero, really an icon in this horror genre. He has a new horror-based competition show called Guts and Glory. And that starts on Tuesday, October 14th on Shudder and AMC Plus, and then rolls out weekly through Tuesday, November 4th, where it has a 2-episode season finale. It drops people into a horror movie where they then have the crap scared out of them, and then they have to perform certain challenges that are straight out of a horror scene, such as digging through a zombie corpse. It is a good show. And Nicotero, I think this is such a cool new challenge for him, because he's not just putting the scares and the effects out on screen for the audience to enjoy. He's bringing it to life in this competition show. And it's you'll see a lot of things throughout this series that will remind you, pay homage to other horror movies, and it's got a theme song written by Slash, which is just pretty cool all on its own. So we're going to get to it, this conversation with Greg Nicotero about Guts and Glory. We also talk about Universal Monsters and what he would like to see happen with that, and some horror movies that he's into right now. And also, he breaks a little bit news about Creepshow. Perhaps you heard that it was canceled. He gives us a little bit more information about that. So, talking about Guts and Glory, here is Greg Nicotero. First thing I want to say is just as a fan, man, I was so sorry to see Creepshow wrap up. Just was such a blast to have that anthology show, fun, horror filled, and also, nice homage to George. So I was sad to see that wrapping up.
Let me just say this about that. Don't believe everything you read. Okay. Because that story got a little twisted around, because when the box set came out, somebody went, "Wait, are you done?" And we're talking about some movies. So Creepshow is not in the grave, so to speak. And like in pure Creepshow fashion, will clamor and crawl its way out. So don't you fret, my friend.
I love to hear that. That is a great bit of news for me this morning. And I
haven't told anybody else that, so that's for you.
Love it. Well, let's talk about this show. I only got to see the first 2 episodes, and I'm really digging it. What was the inception of this? Because as I was watching it, immediately I was thinking, I know you had been pretty involved with Halloween Horror Nights for The Walking Dead and everything in the past. So then I was like, all right, what was the stew? What went into this crock pot to make this happen?
That's a very good observation, which I was using when we were developing the show, which is going to Halloween Horror Nights all those years. I went this year again and went to Orlando, and it was so much fun. And I thought to myself, okay, there's a thrilling scary aspect of being immersed in that world. And that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants a Halloween Horror Nights experience. That's why they're so popular. And then I thought, well, what if we created a unscripted competition show, like a hybrid of, Survivor and the Blair Witch Project, where we come up with a narrative, and then we not only follow this sort of horror movie narrative of like, oh, these contestants were dropped off in this area of the woods where this urban legend talks about this evil spirit. That was sort of the idea, because I wanted to connect it. So look, it's not a prank show. It's not, we're just going to scare people for for the sake of scaring them. They're actually competing against each other. And so that was the impetus for it. Look, I love Survivor, and I watch Big Brother, and I watch Top Chef, and I watched all the Gordon Ramsay shows, and I watch The Traitors, and I love all that kind of stuff. It's super entertaining to me, and it's a lot of fun. And I thought, well, how interesting would it be to sort of do an unscripted television series that sort of puts you into a Halloween Horror Nights scenario.
And it feels very R-rated, or at least PG, hard PG-13, which I like, because it means you don't really have to hold back on the gore or the F-bombs or any of that.
No. Yeah, no, and that I was really happy about that, because you never know what the contestants are going to do, and you never know like how gory you can go. But we started with we wrote 12 different challenges, because the thing was, we write the challenges first, we pick the challenges, and then once we had the challenges, and then it's like, oh, well, how do I thread them all together? And I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted to do a zombie challenge. I wanted, the Night of Living Dead siege at the farmhouse. And I knew I wanted to do a possession challenge. And I wanted to do a morgue challenge. So I had some ideas, and a lot of them were based around knowing what was available to me in Sonoy, Georgia, where we shot The Walking Dead. We shot on the back lot of the studio. So I had the studio available to me. So I knew what I had, at my fingertips. I hired, most of the same crew from The Walking Dead, AD staff, camera crew, costumes, special effects, makeup, stunts. I mean, I hired my team that we'd been together for a long time. And then it came to casting. And that was probably the most fun, because I hired this couple, Randy and Lexi. They have a company called The Casting Duo. And they did like they did like Hell's Kitchen, all the stuff. So I had to start dealing with people that did unscripted stuff. And so, we had a questionnaire, and we interviewed these people. I was watching interview tape after interview tape. And I wanted the contestants to sort of be a really good cross-section of America. I wanted to sort of represent, the guy who's never left his parents' house, and the woman who's, in her 40s with a family and wants something different, and the nurse, the ex-military, and the football, high school, college football guy. I really wanted that, and I love the contestants. I love all of them. They're just all great characters, and for me, this was all about misdirection. Like, we had to convince them that they were in a swamp. We had to convince them that they were in a real hospital. We had to convince them of all these things. And I think for me, the big challenge was, not only keeping them believing what we were selling them up until the point when I'm revealed as the host. And like I said, not your normal competition show. But also, like, 90 to 95% of the show was shot live. It's not like, cut, okay, we got to do it again. Let's try this, or the blood didn't come right, or we had to shoot it live. So it was like literally like shooting a concert or a football game. And we had to anticipate everything that the contestants would do. They're going to go left. They're going to go right. They're going to scream. They're going to laugh. They're going to throw up. Everything that's going to happen, we had to anticipate for it, so that I had a camera there, because what I really wanted was their reactions. When you see a creature or some possessed thing, or you see, a zombie or whatever it is that you see, you got about 8 to 10 seconds of reaction of like, well, what the hell is that? Before the brain is going to say, all right, that's not real, because that doesn't exist. But it's that 10 seconds that I feel really is what we wanted to capture. So, the camera department and all my operators, I was like, guys, creature's going to come from over there. So I want all the cameras trained on the contestants. If I need to later do a pickup of the creature for their point of view, I can shoot that anytime I want. But for 90 to 95% of the show, that creature was there. They were reacting to it, and we had to do it all live. And that was insane. And I had no idea. So I would sit in the command vehicle with all the monitors, like, please, 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 please stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. Like, because I was afraid that one of them would go, I know this is bullshit. That's not really happening. That's not real. That's not real. But they were all in it. And the minute that we revealed that I was sort of the puppeteer, then they all went, oh, crap. Now all bets are off. And that was great.
Yeah, it's you're like Jigsaw Nicotero now. You are the puppet master. And
I like that.
You like the evil machinations that you're setting up. I mean, already, obviously,
I'm gonna steal that. That's fine.
It's yours, especially for the Creepshow tip. Do you enjoy? I mean, already building a career where a lot of the beloved horror stuff that you've worked on, you already like delivering scares. Was it a different type of thrill, some sort of visceral thrill in scaring people in real time that are all under in the palm of your hand?
Well, it was different because, when you're shooting a TV show or a movie, the scares are crafted. And a lot of times in post-production, it's how long do you hold on the shot, sound effects, reactions and POVs and things like that. So this had to be a visceral scare. Like, as an example, when they go into the morgue, we had this smell that we got from this company that was decomposing corpse smell. And we put it in the room. So when they walk into the room, and I always, even on Walking Dead, like when they walked into the prison for the first time, I was like, guys, you have to play the smell. This place is filled with rotting corpses. It would smell so bad. So, and I've never seen anybody really play into the smell of something. In a horror movie, maybe twice in my whole life. So when the contestants come in, they walked into that room, that smell hit you in the face. And they all were like, oh. So I wanted it to be an immersive experience for them. And that was important. And I wanted it to, I wanted them to believe as much as they could believe that what they were seeing was real. There's no power in that room. The temperature was about 59 or 60 degrees. The guts were cold. So when they put their hands into the guts, the intestines and the entrails were freezing cold, which even just, it was whatever sense you can get them to experience. I wanted the audience to experience it with the contestants.
Yeah, I like the scent cues that you're talking about, because even in, like, let's say Halloween Horror Nights, I go every year as well. I was just I did Orlando this year, but not Hollywood yet. And let's say the Terrifier house, they're pumping through the aromas. But even in this situation, it just seems like such a challenge because, like you said, you have to kind of linger on that shot for longer. You have to keep that reality going longer. As opposed to haunted house or even a film set,
Yeah, haunted house, you're like going and getting one room, the next room.
20 seconds, yeah.
But in this, and I think the other thing too was when you're a contestant and you're not competing and you're waiting for the other contestants to do their thing, you're still in the haunted house. You're still there. You're just not participating in it. So the challenge of keeping all of them, like when we design dressing, Molly Coffey, our production designer, did a really good job. I'm like, look, we're immersing them in a horror movie.
Yeah, the casting that you're talking about, maybe I'm slow to the pickup here, but as I was watching the first two episodes of Guts and Glory, it did dawn on me that reality TV show cast, the way they set it up, is very much like a horror movie cast, whether, even though these are the most basic kind of tropes,
Sure.
you're the prom queen, the jock, the know-it-all, all those kinds of guys. We already see that in reality TV and competitions, and now we're seeing it because the horror cast is being brought here. But even if you don't want to name names, as you're doing this casting process, did you have favorites where you're like, I'm rooting for this person?
Of course I did. And what's wild is, when I think we ended up, I'm trying to think, we ended up auditioning maybe 50 or 60 people. And then we had to narrow it down to 10. And that was really hard because I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Even one of the people that we cast was one of the first auditions that I watched. And I kind of was like, I don't know. And then some of the other producers were like, no, that person's great. And I watched it again. I went, yeah, I get it. I see it. So it's kind of interesting to me, but I know who they are when I watch the auditions. I know where they live, what their job is, if they're married, how many kids they have, how many times they've traveled, were they in the military, what their profession is. So I felt like when I'm watching them on camera for the first time, getting out of the bus and going into the campsite, I felt like I knew them all because I had been watching their audition tapes. So it was really strange for me to be like, hey, Alexis, hey, Colby, hey, Julia. Like in my head, I'm like, I knew all of them. And that was really strange. And, it's kind of funny because when we got to the point where we started eliminating them, it was really hard because I knew they were all there to win and they were all there to compete. And to be the person that walks out and kind of crushes their dreams, that was kind of hard. Like that made me really sad.
Did you intentionally? So I have to say up front, Josh is my favorite so far. Did you intentionally cast Josh because he's basically a stand-in for Larry Fessenden?
I did not. No, no, I didn't.
You see it,
but yes, of course. But let me tell you, some of the shit that we did with Josh, that we ended up cutting out. Here's part of the fun thing is, where's my cameras? We bought these Osmo, the Osmo cameras.
Yeah.
We bought 10 of them, and I sent them to the contestants before they ever even got on a plane and flew to us in the South. And I said, guys, capture everything. Film saying goodbye to your family, getting in the car at the airport. So it was kind of like, like The Amazing Race. Like I wanted to get a little bit of a flavor to who these people were. And some of the stuff that they filmed was so funny and so engaging. And like with Colby and Josh and Alexis and Michaela, like all of them, they're really funny. They're like outrageous characters. And you put all these outrageous people into one place. And I just, like I said, I fell in love with all of them. And when I did my first cut of episode 1, I did it like episode 1 of Big Brother. Big Brother, the camera crew goes, hey, you've been selected. And they pull the key and they're like, hey. So when I cut episode 1, my first cut was really more about getting to know the contestants than it was setting. I thought, okay, I want to get to know the contestants. And then when we started putting it together, the network was like, no, we got to get into the competition faster. So we trimmed a lot of that out. And then when we get to episode 6, which I don't think you got yet, but episode 6 is behind the scenes and it shows how we did the whole thing. So I put a lot of that in there.
That's cool.
I loved all the contestants. They're just funny and weird and quirky and interesting. And, I haven't really, because, I'm not allowed to really talk to AM. I'm not supposed to talk to them, even though I've said to AMC, let them do publicity and talk about being on the show because I think they're all great people. So.
And I like within the structure of the story, it seems like you're leaning into a variety of different fears and scares. It's not all supernatural. You got slasher, you got zombie, you got it all in the mix there. But I was curious, as you're kind of scripting the overall story of this, were there story beats that you pulled in from projects that maybe previously ideas you had where you're like, I can't really use this for this after all. I got to cut this or whatever. Like those little nuggets of an idea that worked here that didn't work in something else that you were on.
That's a great question. Not really. I think when I came up with the initial idea, episode 1 and 2 were one episode. I hadn't even thought about, they need to do a challenge in the woods. I basically had them showing up at the camp late in the afternoon, and then it goes right into the end of episode 1. And when we got to like the production schedule, we're like, well, we can't really do that because if they arrive in the morning and then they get to the campsite in the late afternoon, we can't shoot for 24 hours. We can't, and then I thought, oh crap, well, that changes things, but why don't we just put a challenge in episode 1? So that was kind of that solve. So I think with the gags, the morgue gag was one of the first ones that I came up with. I always loved that idea. And we had the hospital that I had shot at for Walking Dead, and I knew that it was there. We shot Creepshow there as well. So I knew that the hospital existed. And I always thought, I wanted to do the morgue challenge, and I wanted the body to be bloated and grotesque and just as disgusting as it could be. And so we sculpted that body. We made that body from scratch. So I had ideas. We wrote 12 challenges because I didn't know if we were doing 8 episodes or 6 episodes or 10 episodes. I didn't know how many. So there were a bunch of challenges that we didn't use, which of course I'll keep in my back pocket if we do another season, fingers crossed. But like, I wanted to also challenge myself. Like, how the fuck are you going to make a creature that looks real, that you don't have to stop every 10 seconds and let the guy out of the suit? How do you keep that narrative going? And, a lot of it was once they get up and you haven't seen that episode yet, but in episode 3, there's 2 really good scares, and we have this creature, and I thought, great, well, if they're walking across this walk the plank challenge, they can't look over, they don't know what's underneath them. And we filmed it to make it look like the creature's in a moat, like waiting for them to fall so it can eat them. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of stuff like that. So I would say that I had very specific ideas, but they were really all tailored to the show. I wasn't like, I wish I had always done. I mean, the morgue body maybe because I always liked the idea of like the scene in 7 when they do the autopsy of the first victim, and you see that giant body on the autopsy table. So I think there's a little homage to 7 in there, but a lot of it was just stuff that we came up with for the show. And then I'm like, I always wanted to make this monster look like this. I always wanted to do like somebody possessed and levitating and having telekinetic powers and shit like that. I just love that stuff.
Well, you've obviously worked with everybody, and sometimes even when you have a clear idea of like what you want to do, it's helpful to like reach out to people for input, advice, tips, or whatever. Was there anyone that you hit up to say like, hey, like I'm trying to unlock this scare, I'm trying to get there, any advice, any input, or even, hey, you want to show up on set and be a zombie for this one to scare a bunch of reality competition contestants?
Well, look, I mean, I certainly stacked the deck in my favor by having my Walking Dead crew there. Mm-hmm. That made a huge difference, having the AD staff and stunts and costumes and camera and everybody effects. That was great. I think, when I was building everything at the shop in Los Angeles, Kerry Jones, who I run the studio with, he was my sounding board for a lot of stuff. I'm like, hey, what do you think if we did this? What do you think if we did that? So he was really fun because he basically runs K&B when I'm off gallivanting around the world doing all these other shows. And we did hire two friends of mine that were writers on Creepshow that wrote a couple of really, really good episodes. Eric Sandoval and Michael Rousselet wrote a bunch of episodes that I really, really liked. And I actually called them and said, hey, do you guys want to like brainstorm with me a little bit? And, and they sort of helped brainstorm some of the challenges with me, because I was like, look, I've never done this before. I don't know how to write challenges. I don't know how to write competition show challenges. If we do a season 2, I would probably bring the challenge producer on much sooner so that they can be involved. Because once we got down there and we were prepping, we only had like 2 weeks of hard prep.
Yeah.
This was crazy. And we shot the entire show in 6 days.
Wow.
Like 6 days. We did a challenge a day, because you're shooting at real time. Like when I was talking to my assistant director, I'm like, I don't even know what a call sheet for this looks like. What does it say? Challenge number 1. And then day 2, challenge number 2. Like you have to, because, don't forget, not only do you shoot the challenge, but then through the course of the day, they come in and they take the contestants away and they shoot their diary cam stuff where they're talking about, oh, this is how I feel in the woods, and this is how I felt, and this was great, and this was terrible. I hate that person. I love that person. So when you have 10 contestants and you have to take them away for a half an hour each, 5 hours of your first day, you're not even shooting the show. You're shooting the contestants reacting to what it was like to walk in the woods the first time. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. I didn't have any sort of, any gauge. I knew we were going to need to do that, but I thought it'd be like, yeah, just 10 minutes and you'd take them off. Hey, how did today go? It went great. So.
And Slash did your theme song?
Slash, yes. It was really funny. He said to me one day, like, why do you never hire me to write anything for you? And I'm like, fuck you. Like, really? Come on. Like, how the hell would you ever have time? And by the way, we're friends. I would never want to impose. And he's like, well, I'd really love to write something for you. I was like, I mean, what do I say? Oh, thanks. But, it's okay. No. So I pitched the show to him, gave him the deck. And, when you work with somebody like him, I mean, I've been friends with him for a long, long time. And this is his wheelhouse. I mean, he's written music for all the, for a lot of the stuff at Halloween Horror Nights. He's written a lot of those themes. As a matter of fact, when I was editing and I was using a lot of his temp music for the Universal Monsters Maze, and I was like, "Ooh, it's a great soundtrack that he did." So I was using some of his temp music when I was editing, and then he just went, "Okay, it's done." And he's like, okay, I'm going to send it to you. And I was like, how do you give notes to somebody like Slash? Like, you just listen to it and go, yeah, it's great. Okay. Like, I was a little nervous, to be honest, because I was like, God, I hope I like it. And then when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think we change. I want a little bit more of that, a little bit less of that. Let's move this around. I play guitar too, so that helps. Yeah. But it was really cool. And he's look, I mean, he's probably one of the biggest horror fans I know. He sees every movie. He watches every TV show. Even if it's bad, he still finds redeeming things about it. And I love that about him. He'll be like, oh, did you see that? I'm like, yeah, I didn't really like it. He's like, no, I thought it was great. I like this, and this about it. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Those work. So he's passionate. And he's enthusiastic, and I'm lucky to have him.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. It's a little difficult sometimes, or intimidating working with your friends because, how do you give notes to them? But I also love that pure love, that joy of like that nerd that's in all of us. So it's still there.
Look, you always want to work with your friends. That's the goal. When you've been doing it as long as I have, everyone's like, "What have you not done?" I'm like, well, I just want to work with my friends. I want to have a good time. And, the whole thing with Slash was, of course, I never want to impose on anybody. I always feel weird about, like, I don't even like asking for tickets. Like, can I get passes for a screening? Or, like, I always feel weird about that because I'm like, I don't want to have to ask. I just, it's not my thing. So with Slash, he's like, hey, man, like, I'd love to do something. And I went, okay, but don't offer it and then tell me you can't do it. He's like, no, I really, really want to do it. Oh, great. Okay. Fuck.
Do you, I mean, kind of speaking of the, him watching everything, you're a busy guy. And I know even though you love this stuff, it can be hard to keep up on everything that's coming out there. But
Yeah.
because your voice matters, because people, trust you as this authority, is there any love that you can give to other projects out there? Let's say specifically horror projects, TV shows, movies, put a little spotlight on any love that you can give to some stuff out there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of the stuff that I saw that I've seen recently. Look, I loved Weapons.
Hmm.
Um, JT Molnar is a friend, and I love Strange Darling, and I think he's a super talent. Um, uh, what else? Look, I mean, I always post about stuff. I don't post much, but when I do, like, when Mike Flanagan's House of Usher was on, I couldn't not just be like, if you're not watching this, then there's something wrong with you, because it's so great. So, I still do see, I'm watching Alice in Borderland season 3 right now. Love it. Love it. I mean, I love those shows. I'm trying to think of what else that I've seen this year. Final Destination was super fun. What's coming up? Black Phone's coming up.
Like phone, yeah.
Joe Hill's a good friend, and Scott Derrickson is a great director. Look, I mean, people need to go to the theater. They need to keep seeing movies. They need to keep supporting movies, because you'll never beat it. You can't watch it on this all the time. You got to go to the theater. It has to be a communal experience. When Ben Gardner's head pops out of the boat in Jaws, the entire theater screams at the same time. And you could only hope that people get to experience entertainment the way that it was intended to be experienced, and not solitary, looking it on your phone. I really want people to go to the theater.
The Ben Gardner still gets me, 40
Yeah.
years later after being exposed to it. I just one, and Marissa, our publicist, just give me one more for this, because kind of on the flip side of this, and kind of going back to Universal as well. I am a Universal Monsters kid. Love, love, love. And I love that we're seeing these monster rallies happening in the Halloween Horror Nights houses and Epic Universe, the Dark Universe land, which I find magical.
Me too.
It kind of what I guess this question that I'm forming is like, what do we do with all this, with the actual Universal monsters? Not just, Guillermo's Frankenstein, which I'm very much looking forward to, but like the Universal properties. To what do we ascribe this kind of revival, and what would you like to see happen within this world?
Well, look, I mean, I'll be honest. I had trepidation about The Invisible Man when it was coming out, and then I watched it and was thoroughly entertained. I think the trick with the Universal Monster stuff is it's inherently gothic. And Gothic doesn't necessarily play with modern audiences. Guillermo's the perfect guy to direct Frankenstein. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm dying to see it. Oh, it's his birthday today. Shit, I got to call him. So I think the Universal Monster franchise has to be in the right hands. I think that's really, really important. I understand trying to reimagine it for different audiences and such, but I feel like Guillermo's, in my opinion, the best suited because of his aesthetic and his gothic nature of the things that he makes. I just don't want it to be watered down, or I don't want it to be like, well, that's not really the Wolfman, but you call it the Wolfman, but it's not. So I'm just look. I mean, Creature from the Black Lagoon, of course, is one of my faves, and Robert Rodriguez and I were always toying with the idea of like we should do a creature movie. I forget who's doing it, or I think there's one in development right now at Universal. But then the question is it updated? What is it like? I mean, Shape of Water is kind of a reimagining of Creature from the Black Lagoon. The Universal Monsters, I think it's just because of the gothic nature of them, the originality, the first impression of seeing Frankenstein for the first time, or the coffin moving with Dracula's hand coming out, or all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how you're never going to match it, and you're never really going to recreate it. You just have to sort of make sure that you're paying tribute to it and keep the DNA. Don't alter the DNA of it, I think would be my advice is, you can still tell a really good story. Like, look, Alien Earth, I know Marissa's probably annoyed with me. I loved Alien Earth. I loved it. And I'll tell you why I loved it. I loved it because it kept the DNA of the alien universe authentic and came up with its own story. And that's what I admired about it. And, the producers, I thought, did a great job. And so that would be my gauge. My gauge is look at Alien Earth as an example, because if you were able to keep the DNA of the Universal monster stuff the same and come up with a unique story, then great.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you all day about just Universal, because it's a tough nut to crack, the monsters.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
You consider when Browning's Dracula came out, that was less than 40 years than after Bram Stoker's novel. So we were not that far removed from the Gothic era. So it's kind of like we have to go back to that, but also make it intriguing to modern audiences. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I think because modern audiences, because stuff changes so fast that you don't want it to feel outdated. And what the appetite for it is. Look, when I was growing up, I saw Alien in the theater. I saw Dawn of the Dead in the theater. I saw Jaws in the theater. And that was your primary form of entertainment, was you go to the movies. Escape from New York, The Fog, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, that shaped who I am and who I was. Road Warrior, Creepshow, The Thing, E.T., Poltergeist. Fuck. I mean, like, I'm so grateful that I got to experience that wave, because there was 3 channels on TV, and that was it. You went to the movies, and that's where you found your primary form of entertainment.
Yeah.
So.
And that was Greg Nicotero talking about the new horror-based competition show, Guts and Glory, premiering Tuesday, October 14th on Shudder and AMC Plus. And we also got a little bit of info about Creepshow. So maybe movies are happening. Meanwhile, keep up with Talking Strange. I appreciate your support, and share the show with your friends and your enemies and your loved ones. We just like it being out there. So get that out there. Get the word out there. Okay, I've been rambling. So let's get out of this episode. I'm Aaron Sagers. This has been Talking Strange. Till next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.